I really feel sorry for you guys because I really don't try, do I? Like, I must apologise. I just can't be asked to put on makeup. I don't know if it's just at the moment because I just get up and I think, no, unless I'm going somewhere where my photo is definitely going to be taken in like a group environment where I would feel Devo if I looked hideoso. It's very Harry Potter of me. Hideoso. I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm very tired. I'm filming this in the evening for once. Well, it's early evening, so good evening. Guten Abend. It's actually still very bright. I know it is summer, but I'm so desperate for autumn that I literally wanted to look outside and it'd be pitch black. But anyway, yeah, I'm sorry guys. I promise I will start trying to make an effort to look nice, because I suppose that's kind of what the point of a podcast host is supposed to be. They're supposed to be kind of well organised and look presentable, and it seems like for the most part I just don't. But to be fair, I think my skin needs to breathe. It's not been too bad, but this one's annoying me, this spot. So sorry about that, but I'm sure you won't mind looking at my ugly mug for one more episode. And if you're just listening on Spotify, then it's even better for you because you don't even have to see my face. But anyway, I hope you guys are having a lovely morning. I am considering changing the times for releasing the episodes, because originally I did it so that I could do it in time that would match my schedule, so I could release it and then keep on top of it where I can. But the incredible world of technology means that, you can just schedule everything in advance. So if there's any ideal times for you guys / days, it turns out it doesn't matter what my schedule is. I can pretty much do it whenever. So I might start releasing on Friday. And to be fair, I think Fridays would be a better day to release, because I feel as though a lot of my audience are in a position where they're probably more likely on a Friday night to have the time to listen to my blabbering. So, and I want what's best for you guys, obviously. So if there is any specific times or days that you think would actually be better, I'll put it on my Instagram and put a little poll to see what you guys think. But please feel free to put it in the comments if you can think of any days, and I will take it into consideration. Okay, so let's get into this week's episode. This is going to be a bit of a different kind of approach to an episode than what I've done before, because not that I've run out of topics, but I kind of wanted something completely different, format wise, in every sense. So I got an idea. So I'm a big book girly. I love books, and I've been trying to get through as many as possible this year, but not in the sense of rushing it, but in the sense that I am one of those people that if I just stop watching a program or put a book down and I go a week without even looking at it, that's, for some reason, I can't get back to it, and it'll be months before I even touch or look or think of it again. So one of my New Year's resolutions was to read more books, because I actually enjoy it, and I wanted to do more things this year that I enjoy. Because although it sounds stupid, of course you're going to do stuff you enjoy, but that's not always the case, because sometimes you get swept up in doom scrolling, and no matter what you want to do, doom scrolling is so much easier, and it gives you those quick shot of adrenaline and endorphins, and nice bit of happy hormone, and then the next video, and then every 5 seconds. So I've been trying to incorporate more things that aren't technology into my life, and books are a big thing of mine. I love a good book. So I genre wise have done a lot of fantasy books. I love like romance fantasy books. So obviously fantasy wise started off with stuff like Harry Potter. I think that's kind of quite a few people's introductions into fantasy. Although now I'm saying it, I did actually read the Narnia books, some of them. I have all of them because there's like 7, and I loved the films when I was little, so my nan got me the books and I've read 3 of them. I can't remember them, but I did read those. And then I've also read, if you guys remember that film, The Golden Compass, that was based off a book series by Philip Pullman called His Dark Materials. The series called His Dark Materials, and I read the 3 books that he created within that series, and that's also like fantasy, and it's a really good book. I'd highly recommend it. So I lie when I say Harry Potter was my introduction into fantasy, because I've read all sorts that have had those kind of themes. And then obviously as I got older and I got introduced to BookTok, because you know the For You page really knows how to sell me stuff, and I got onto that side of my feed and I got introduced into loads of books that have been both incredible and absolutely wank. I wouldn't recommend them to anyone, but I think that's the point of reading. It's individual to everyone. It's literally like having a taste in food. If you recommend something and you think it's delicious, the other person might not agree, and it doesn't mean that thing isn't delicious. It just means sometimes it's not for their taste. Like, for example, I know quite a few of my friends love like gushy romance books. If you can hear banging, that's my brother from upstairs. Ignore him, or I might go and smack him in a minute if he continues. Anyway, as I was saying, quite a few of my friends are quite big fans of gushy romance, and I'm not a big fan of overly flamboyant romance stories. Like, I love a classic romance, like a Pride and Prejudice, but I don't know, there's something about a modern romance that I really can't get into, and that's just my preference. I'm more of like I want it to feel like they're in like the year 1800, and I want it to feel like it's in a completely different time. I want it to be in a completely different time. I get really freaked out when books mention phones, like when the character starts looking and calling people like on their phone. I freak out, and like that just feels too close to home. But that being said, I came across this book on BookTok, and it's a modern theme book with modern day. I believe it is based like a couple of years ago from now. And also I'm easily intrigued by stuff that has trigger warnings, because I'm not overly affected by very mature and graphic themes. I have always been quite a big fan of like thrillers and true crime documentaries and horror films. I'm quite good with, what's the word, gore, stuff like that. Sorry guys, I had to leave you there briefly because my boyfriend called me to ask if I wear jorts, because apparently him and his friends are doing a survey. Don't ask, I won't ask, we move. But yeah, as I was saying, I have never been overly affected by very mature themes in films, and especially books. I don't know what it is about books, but it doesn't seem to really resonate with me in a way that I will, feel uncomfortable. And I can sometimes get that with films, but it's not as, I don't really experience it a lot. And to be fair, I've not read a lot of like true crime books or horror books. I'd quite like to, but it's not currently what I'm reading at the moment. I prefer to watch horror movies than read horror books, but I would love to explore, like, for example, Stephen King novels. Like, he's got so many, and obviously he's got quite a few film adaptations of those books. So I'd like to explore them at some point, but at the moment I've kind of got a theme going of what I'm reading. However, let's dive into actually what this episode is about, which is my first dark romance that I read. And as you guys will see by the thumbnail, it is Haunting Adeline, which is the first book in the 2-book series. And it's called, I remember ordering it on Amazon, and it was called, like, they referenced it as a cat and mouse chase book. And my boyfriend just messaged me, thank you for your survey response. So yeah, and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. And I'd heard about it on TikTok. It had been circulating, and like, people would do like reactions, or like they'd reference, like, oh, that scene in this book, and they'd do like a comment audio to it. And yeah, this book had been going around about how graphic and intense it was, and I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself. As soon as someone says, this book is intense, you need to prepare yourself, you will be traumatized, I was like, sign me up. Don't threaten me with a good time. I'm on my way. And literally, I forgot about it for a bit, and then it popped up again, and I was like, do you know what, I'm gonna go for it. And I looked it up on Amazon. As I said, it referenced it as a cat and mouse chase book, but I didn't look at the full description. I didn't actually check out the blurb on Amazon, and waited until it arrived. I accidentally ordered the second book, so I was like, oh no, now I've got to order the other one so I have both at the same time. Such a shame when that happens, And I checked the blurb out, and I remember doing some research to the book prior, and it said it was actually banned on a few sites. So I think this is in certain countries, to be fair. Us British, we're not so sensitive. Like, I think you have to do a lot in Britain to get a book banned. So yeah, at first I was like, oh my god, is it going to be difficult to get hold of? But obviously it wasn't. And literally, and if you guys aren't familiar with this book, I am going to read out the trigger warnings. To be fair, the second one, I had a little read of the second blurb and the second trigger warnings, because obviously I thought it was the first and then realised. But it comes with an important note. And this, where is it? Here we go. None of these conspiracies derive from the belief in anti-Semitism or QAnon. Don't know what that is. I need to look that up. But from my own demented imagination. First of all, before we get into the rest of the trigger warnings, I don't get it when people think that just because someone is writing about a certain topic, therefore they are basically stating that they are in support of that subject, or they practice that subject / activity. That is not the case at all. I mean, I'm sure there are some twisted authors who have wrote stuff in books vicariously through characters because they either feel as though they wish they were doing that, or they have done that and they're writing from experience. But obviously that is not all authors, and I'm sure that's very rare. But for example, I'm sure Stephen King wasn't going out maliciously axing families in an abandoned hotel. You've got to separate the art from the artist sometimes, because half the time they're not connected. Like, just because someone's writing about a really deranged relationship, toxic relationship, abusive relationship, doesn't mean they support those things. So, let's get on to the trigger warnings. This book ends on a cliffhanger, which it does. The contents are very dark with triggering situations such as non-dub con between the main characters. Non-dub con I wasn't sure on. I'm still not sure. I need to look it up. Graphic violence, human trafficking, stalking, child trafficking, child sacrifice, mentions of child death, and explicit sexual situations. There are also particular kinks such as gunplay, somnophilia, bondage, and degradation. I had to look up what somnophilia was. I've already forgotten. But I'm going to let you guys be the judge of whether you want to figure that out or not. So, obviously, from the bat, it's like, oh, okay. Thanks for the warning. But as I said, I like a challenge. So I thought, how bad could it be? Okay, so I'm going to give an honest review of this book. I've never done a book review before, so please bear with me. And I'm not going to dive into the whole book in depth. This is just going to be very brief of my experience, as this is my first dark romance. So obviously, not having experienced this style of writing before, I'm a baby, I don't really know. But I can say the dark romance genre has intrigued me previously anyway. It's not something where I was a complete innocent to and was like, what do you mean about forced romances? No, girl, I knew. I was trying to find something good. And then this showed up and I was like, fuck it, I'll try it out. And do you know what? I am glad I did, because I think it has opened the paths to a dark romance collection of books coming my way. And as I said, I do have the second book in the series. I haven't read it yet, so please don't give me any spoilers. But bearing in mind, I might mention things that if you haven't read this book and you want to, it might spoil it. So I will try to do my best to be vague, but I'm sorry if I say something I'm not supposed to, okay? So, okay, from general writing style, and bearing in mind this is coming from a British person. I'm English, the author is American, and I've read quite a few American books that I've absolutely loved. I've read quite a few British books, and I can often tell the cultural separation. I can separate the two quite easily, especially because I read classics, and I know classics are very easy to distinguish because it's all very posh and all very Bridgerton style, isn't it? I'm not even going to try and mimic it, I'll make a fool of myself, but I tend to recognise when something has been written by an American author before I even know that the author is American, which isn't a bad thing. American authors have done some incredible work, and I've got quite a few in my collection that I adore. That being said, and I think this is also one of the main reasons why I'm not a big fan, correct English, on modern discourse in a book. When people are talking like they're from this time, it can be, I don't know, there's something about it I don't like. But in this book, there were some moments where I really cringed. I went through the emotions. There were points where I was reading a bit and then I fully had to look at the fake camera as if you're really, bitch. I'm gonna try and find an example for you guys, because especially the sexual innuendo. Everyone has their preferences. There was just... It was very American, which, again, no shade, but there's just something so, like, Hollywood style, like, overdramatic series, like, teen drama kind of discourse. Like, I felt like I was watching Riverdale or something, like, because some of the terms, like, I know there's, like, using current slang and using language that people are using at the time to reflect the time it is written and it is based, but like, I'm trying to find a good example because there is one on the top of my head that I can't remember the exact, but two of the characters went to a club and were dancing and, you know, having a fun girly night. And this guy approached the main character, Adeline, because obviously he was interested, he was feeling a bit of her. And he, like, it was kind of on the lines of, like, damn, you're, like, really beautiful. Who says that? Maybe American clubbing is different, but oh my god, you're gonna get a reality check if you come over here. The boys here do not say shit like that, and I'm kind of glad they don't, but it's more along the lines of, man, you're looking leng. Like, not, damn, you're, like, really beautiful. Who says that? It's not realistic. This is what I mean. I want it to sound realistic. I don't want it to sound scripted. And I know it's a book, and we don't always read for it to be realistic. Like, heck, I'm reading about fairies and, like, fucking, you know, magical palaces and shit. Like, but believe me, escapism is not about reality, and I'm fully aware. However, I don't want it to seem like it genuinely is fake, because if it's too like that, then it almost rips me out of my beautiful little escapism bubble of this world I've entered, and I'm like, what was that about? Like, I just can't. And I don't know if you guys feel this, because I think it's a thing. Like, obviously, if you're used to reading modern books, then you're going to be used to seeing quite a lot of that. Although I've read a few modern books, and they haven't used stuff like that. They've referenced modern things, but they haven't used a typical overdramatic slang, which I think is important. But also, yeah, as I was saying, the sexual innuendo was intense. I don't know if it was my preference, but they said, I'm going to say pussycat, because I'm not a fan of the word. They said that word as, like, a lot. When Adeline and her stalker, when he was, like, you know, pillow talking her, he would say it a lot. And when you were in Adeline's mind about, you know, how she was feeling, she would also say it a lot. And there was a few C words in there, which I love a C word, but it's the way it was used. And I was like, I had to, like, shake my head and be like, whoa. I don't know why. Like, I think I'm used to fairy books where they're like, they call it sex, and it, like, I don't know, it seems kind of like not overly formal, but, like, you know, like polite almost. Whereas pussycat, I don't even like saying that word, let alone the short version. It just really put me off. Like, it really put me off. Because every time he would say something like, yeah, do you like my big schlong in your... I can't even say it, I'm sorry. I can't. Oh, I'm so sorry that you were about to really hear me say that. I just saw myself in, yeah. Let's not become an audio fucking OnlyFans. Unless you guys will pay. But yeah. So there is that. Again, that's my personal preference with writing. I prefer sex talk to be more subtle. I like a slow burn. This was not, I wouldn't say it was a slow burn, even though it took a while, because if you don't know the premise of the book, he is stalking her and he breaks into her house and leaves her gifts, and she's obviously quite freaked out by it, and the idea is that he's trying to make her fall in love with him, but first he wants to scare the shit out of her. Like, he gets off of it, and so does she. So it kind of was a slow burn, and I quite like my sex discourse in books to be very like suggestive at first, whereas this man and her, to be fair, everything was very very crude. For lack of a better term, it was crude, but I think in small doses that's fine, but it's not for me. So if you get past that bit, which can be quite cringy, and I do cringe easily, to be fair, like I am quite picky. If you get past the interesting sexual tension and the sexual talk, I really enjoyed it. I understood where people got quite disturbed by the relationship between the two. I don't think it was advocating for that at all. Like I said, separate it from the author's actual intentions and practices. I doubt she's doing that. Hopefully not. But I think if I was affected by the topics of stalking and rape and child trafficking, which are, I'm not saying they don't affect me at all, because they obviously do, but obviously I am privileged enough to not have experienced those things in my life. But I'm sure there are many people that really don't want to read anything about that. So if you're really affected by those, please do not read it. It is intense and it is heavy in those departments. But there is, like, normally I'm not easily like grossed out, as I was saying. I'm not often easily affected by a book. However, there was one bit where it was the first time they were intimate, and he forced himself on her, and that's part of the book, because he forces himself on her, but she likes it, which is a touchy subject in itself, because you can be like, your body can respond to something without you liking it. But I suppose in obviously the character's world, in like, she was written because she likes that stuff. She's very much her kink is being scared and being chased and being dominated, even though she had no interest in the man to begin with. The idea is that she ends up liking it. But the first time that happened and I read about it, it actually physically made me feel ill. I don't know what it was about it. Like, I can't even remember how graphic it was. The book is quite graphic. I can't remember what part was really affected me in that particular scene. But I felt genuinely ill. I had to put the book down. Like, my stomach was churning. I had to take a minute out and say, okay, let's not think about that for a bit. And that was interesting. I'd never experienced that in a book. Maybe that's a sign of good writing. Maybe it's a sign that they're just really graphic subjects, and, you know, you can be affected by them whether you have before or not. But yeah. So yeah, but that was the only part that made me feel really ill. In fact, no, I felt ill at slightly later in the book. Overall, I think I liked the book. I think sometimes you need to read a book more than once, don't you? And I've only read it once, and it is quite a chunky book. Like, it's quite. It's not the biggest book I've read, but it's quite long also. Like, what the average book is probably slightly shorter than that, and so there's quite a lot of depth to it. Like, it's quite a thick boy, and the second one is equally as thick, if not slightly bigger. So I'm intrigued to see what happens. I've not started it yet, because sometimes you need to reconnect with nature after reading something that smutty, that dark. And don't get me wrong, I love my smut. I love a smutty book. But yeah, I needed a break. So if you're interested, I am reading now this book called, let me find it. It's called The Seven Sisters by Lucinda Riley. This is it here. And I actually got sent this. I keep dropping the mic. I actually got sent this. What are they called? Oh, a book exchange. I participated in a book exchange at the end of I think it was the end of last year, actually. And I got 2 books. This was one of them, and then another one was a Colleen Hoover book that I've lent to my friend because she's quite a big fan. So she's reading it at the moment, and she's quite enjoying it. I think she might have even finished it. And yeah, so I had this on my shelf for ages. And then after I read The Very Dark Romance, I saw this, and it almost was like a beacon of light. Like, the contrast, let me hold them up together, is obviously presenting very different themes. So this was almost literally like a lighthouse shining the way towards me, like, have something normal that's not about stalking. And I was like, oh, okay, for once. And as you can see, I am over halfway through. I've been reading sporadically because I've been really busy. So I haven't been doing it as much as I'd like, but I have genuinely been reading this book whenever I have the time. I am in love with this book. This might be one of my top books of the year, and it's only August, but I've read a book each month, and I think this might be my favourite. It is, maybe we'll deep dive into it if you guys are interested once I'm finished. But again, I'm a sucker for a series. So if you're an author and you have a series of books, I'm all in, because I get really invested into characters. So if you've got like a one-time book, then I'm less likely to read it. I don't know why, I'm weird like that. But if there's like a chance for me to keep coming back to the same characters and finding out more, I'm your gal. But in this book series, there are 6 books. So obviously I'm going to try and seek them out. And then she's got a previous collection of books. So she's got like 10 additional ones. And I like her writing so much that I'm probably just going to have to buy them all. It's going to have to be done. So that is what I'm reading currently. And then I don't really plan what I'm going to read after. Like sometimes I will get a new book and I'll be so excited that I'm like, yes, I'm going to read it now. Or I will buy a book and I will put it on the shelf to age like fine wine and pick it up when I feel it is right. Because sometimes I've picked up books and I can tell I'm not ready to read them, or for some reason I'm not in the mindset, so I have to come back to them at a later date. But I believe that's what books are for. Books are intended to be collected and cherished, and I just love books as a part of a household. They really provide a character of, like, I love maximalism, and I think they just provide the most perfect accessory, if nothing else, but obviously they provide so much more than that. So yeah, I think that's this episode done. It is now getting dark outside. If you can see from my window, you've probably seen the light change as this episode has gone on, which is quite sweet. You can now see it's a beautiful blue hue outside. And I'm... Sorry, little yawn. I was about to say I'm absolutely knackered, but the proof is in the pudding. So I hope you guys enjoyed this different episode for this week, and hopefully I will reach out to my fellow book buddies and my BookTok people, because I just love talking about books, and any recommendations I am up for. I'm always willing to spend more money on books. I'm running out of space though. I really need to get like a shelf or something. My boyfriend keeps saying he'll put shelves up for me, but I keep forgetting to buy them. So I need to sort that out at some point, because my books are literally like everywhere. I'm going to be one of those people who just have books like in the most random places in her house when she's older, with like millions of cats like just running around. Witchy vibes. But yeah, I hope you guys have a lovely ordinary day. I'm going to have a lovely ordinary evening, probably playing Sims. And please like and subscribe and share. All the love is very much appreciated. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next week. Bye.